Often in traditional stories and fairy tales, women are depicted as passive and in need of saving, which sucks. But it's not always like that. Folk tales are very varied and weren't all written with the same agenda in mind. This romantic, traditional Scottish ballad is one such different tale. Hello, good people! I'm Aylin Alma, this is Folk Tales by Alma, and before we move on to today's story, some announcements.
I regret to announce this is the end.
I haven't been very active during the past month. Life got the better of me. Stress, lots of things have been going on in the world, which are stressful. I also realized that posting a video every week was actually causing me to dread the recording and uploading process. So I'm gonna be uploading a video most likely each other week. Anyway, on to today's traditional romantic story. Janet was the daughter of an earl. As such, there were things expected of her. She will wear dresses and learn to embroider and sing prettily with her companions until her earl father saw it fit to grant her in matrimony to some lord or other. Janet liked the dresses and the singing, but she preferred to wear them out of doors and to sing through the green summer woods as the sun went down in a glimmer of gold. What she did not like was being commanded to wear them, being commanded to sing. One day she walked with her nurse, a woman old beyond imagination, wrinkled as the peaches in the pantry, but with a cunning look in her eye. In my day, she was chastising her for running through the fields and woods alone. All maidens knew not to venture into the forest alone, especially not the forest of Carterhaugh, but I cannot say any more. Please, grandmother, said Janet, whose curiosity was never satisfied. Oh well, you really should know, smiled the old woman. In the forest of Carterhaugh there lives an elf, a most dangerous creature of night and malice, beautiful as the starry sky, but dangerous as a gaping void opening before you in the dark. A moment of doubt, and then she continued. 'Tis said that no maiden that goes into those woods will ever come out a maiden still. Many days and many nights Janet sat alone with this story. As she ate bored in the feasting hall, as she embroidered by the window, as her hair was done for her, as her smiling companions repeated their lessons in endless litany. One day, Janet saddled a horse in secret and went on the road. Within her dominion, as it was, lay none other than the forest of Carterhaugh. Many hills and many rivers she traversed, and the sun was already halfway down as she unhorsed and stepped into the darkness of the wood. The sunlight streamed through the trees, and beneath her feet the forest floor was covered with bluebells and briar roses. Impulsively, she stretched out her hand and plucked a white rose. No sooner had she done this when a young man appeared in the path before her. Softly he spoke.
I am the guardian of these woods, sent here so that no one may disturb their peace. Who are you to pluck the roses of Carterhaugh without my command?
I meant no harm, but this forest is mine, said Janet. The young man smiled, as one smiles who has not smiled in a long time, and plucked a red rose that had grown right beside the white one.
Ah, but I would willingly give all the roses of Carterhaugh to one as lovely as you.
Taking his rose, Janet asked him who he was.
My name is Tam Lin.
I have heard of you, you're a dangerous elfin knight, cried Janet, and in her surprise she threw the flower away. But Tam Lin did not move. He certainly did not harm her, and after a moment of silence, they sat down and they talked. Among the briars and the roses in the first blossoming of spring, Janet and Tam Lin sung and laughed and eventually embraced. Many moons passed and summer was leaning towards the heavy shade of autumn when Janet's belly began to show. She hid it for as long as she could manage, but being the daughter of an earl, always observed, considered and measured, she was soon found out. Brought before her father, Janet stood proud and silent.
Who is it?
the Earl asked.
"Which is the knight that has defiled you? Tell me, and I will make him marry you, and then your child may have his name."
But Janet replied, "No knight in your hall will ever give my child his name." And though they asked, threatened and pleaded, she would say no more. Maybe it was because her father loved her, or maybe because they thought her already doomed, but Janet was allowed to saddle her dapple grey horse and ride out of the gates like the wind. Many hills she galloped, many rivers she crossed, and the chill of evening was settling over her like a damp blue shawl when she made it to Carterhaugh. The branches were all bare now, and darkness pooled underneath, but on the enchanted forest floor there still grew a lonely thorny black rose. Janet knelt. Tam Lin had taught her enough of elven magic. She knew what she must do, so she put her hand out to touch, not the petal this time, but the thorn. That was truly the secret to ending the state she was in. She would never be a maiden again, but it would be better than a life of solitude and shame.
"What are you doing?"
Tam Lin appeared before her with dread on his fair elven face. "You have no right to ask. I will not have you," said Janet. "I do not even know who you really are."
"I will tell you,"
Tam Lin replied.
"but it is a bad story and sad. For though men call me an elven knight, I was once born a mortal child just like you. Here, let us sit together. My father and my mother died when I was but an infant, so my grandfather took me to live with him. Years later, when we were hunting in this very woods, a cold, strange wind blew in from the north and shook every branch and every leaf. I became very tired and was soon separated from hunting companions. Finally, I fell from my horse and into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I found myself in fairyland, for the fairy queen had abducted me while I slept and did not dream. Ever since then, I have been bound by the spell the elf queen placed upon me. In the day, I guard the woods of Carterhaugh, and at night I must return to her kingdom. Janet, I wish I could return to my mortal life. I long to be free of the enchantment upon me."
He spoke with such great sorrow that Janet cried out, "Is there no way this spell can be broken?" Tam Lin caught her hands in his and said,
"Tonight is the feast of Samhain, and only on this night of nights is there a chance to win me back to mortal life."
"Tell me what I shall do to help you then." Tamlin then explained what she must do.
On Samhain, the fairy folk ride abroad and I ride with them. When midnight comes, you must go to the crossroads and wait for the fairy troop to ride by. As the first company approaches, stay still and let them go by. When the second company comes, let them pass also. I shall be in the third company, riding a milk-white steed. You must then run to me, Janet, and no matter what spells the elf queen places upon us, you must not let me go."
With that, the young man smiled and disappeared, even as the sun dipped below the horizon. Just a little after midnight, Janet hurried to the crossroads and waited. The ditches gleamed in the moonlight, and the trees rustled their branches eerily above her. Faintly in the wind she heard the sound of bridles tinkling, and then she knew the fairy troop was on the move. Shivering, she drew her cloak about her and peered into the darkness. She saw the gleam of a silver harness. Soon all of the fairy troop came to sight, their fair faces upturned to the moonlight, and their flowing braids windswept behind them as they rode. She spotted the elf queen herself riding on a coal-black mare. She stayed perfectly still until they passed her, nor did she move when the second company rode by. But in the third company she saw indeed the milk-white horse that bore Tam Lin. Then Janet ran from the shade of the thorn hedge. She then pulled him to the ground and clasped him in her arms. Immediately the cry went up, "Tam Lin is away!" The elf queen's black mare reared and she pulled her to a halt. Turning, she cast emerald eyes upon Tam Lin and Janet, and as the woman held Tam Lin fast, placed a spell upon them. Tam Lin suddenly shrunk and became a cold, scaly lizard that Janet clasped to her chest. Janet then felt a slithering sensation through her fingers, a writhing snake that wound about her neck, but she gripped it tightly. Suddenly a searing pain ran through her hands. The snake had become a red-hot cinder. Tears of agony ran down Janet's face, but still she held tight to Tam Lin and would not let him go. At last the Elf Queen knew that she had lost Tamlin forever to the love of a courageous mortal woman. She then shaped him in Janet's arms back to his own form, as naked as the day he was born. In triumph, Janet covered Tamlin with her cloak. A slender ghostly hand led Tamlin's fairy horse away. And Janet and Tamlin heard the beautiful voice of the Elf Queen. "The fairest knight in all my company has been lost to the world of mortals. Farewell, Tamlin. Had I known that a mortal woman would win you with her love, I would have taken out your heart of flesh and put in its place a heart of stone. And had I known fair Janet would come to Carterhaugh, I would have taken out your 2 grey eyes and put in their place 2 of wood." Even as she spoke, a faint dawn could be seen on the horizon. With an unearthly cry, the fairy riders mounted, spurred on their horses, and vanished with the night. Tamlin gently caught hold of one of Janet's poor blistered hands, and together they made their way back to her castle. It is said her father blessed the union, and they lived a long and happy mortal life. What do you think of this story? Was Janet in the right to try and save Tam Lin? I particularly like it because it shows a woman who decides her own fate. There's a bit of role inversion between the genders, but I think it could also be a dangerous role model, the whole save the bad boy trope. Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this lovely tale, do not forget to hit the like button, share with a friend or lover, an enemy, and subscribe for more folk tales, legends and mythology. May love find you, and may the Elf Queen not catch you, unless that's what you want. He loves me. He loves me! Many reavers